The Discovery. Commander Eliza Reeves stood at the viewport of the UNSC horizon, watching the endless canvas of stars while absently turning a small metallic cylinder between her fingers. The exploration vessel had been charting the edges of the Cygnus Arm for nearly 16 months, farther than any human expedition had ventured before. Their mission was simple: map the unknown, catalog anomalies, and maintain humanity's insatiable hunger for discovery. "Commander, we're picking up an unusual signal at bearing 047 Mark 23, Lieutenant Park called from the sensor station. "It's not matching any known pattern in our database." Reeves pocketed the cylinder and moved to the central display. "Show me." The holographic projection revealed a pulsing light situated within an asteroid field surrounding a massive gas giant. The light flickered in an unmistakably artificial pattern. 3 short pulses, 3 long, 3 short again. "That's an SOS," Reeves said quietly. "Universal distress signal." "But we're beyond any charted territory," Chief Science Officer Takeda said, her brow furrowed. "Who would be out here sending Earth-standard distress calls?" The bridge fell silent as the implications settled over them. "Set course for the signal origin," Reeves ordered. "Yellow alert. I want defensive systems ready but not active. Let's not appear hostile if someone's calling for help." As they approached the asteroid field, the signal grew stronger. The source became visible, a small vessel no larger than a shuttle, its design unlike anything in human records. Its hull was composed of interlocking hexagonal plates that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "No propulsion system that I can identify," Chief Engineer Rodriguez reported. "But those hull plates, they appear to be absorbing and redirecting solar radiation. Ingenious design." "Life signs?" Reeves asked. "One confirmed," Park replied. "Weak but stable. Definitely not human." Reeves made her decision. "Prepare the retrieval team. Full biohazard protocols. Dr. Takeda, you're with me." The alien vessel was secured in Cargo Bay 3, surrounded by a containment field. Up close, the craft was even more remarkable. Each hexagonal plate contained intricate circuitry that pulsed with a soft blue light. The hatch was sealed, but as the retrieval team approached, it irised open without prompt. Inside, they found a single occupant, a being approximately human-sized, but with iridescent skin that shifted colors like oil on water. It had 4 arms, each ending in 7-fingered hands, and its head housed large compound eyes that reflected the team's images back at them. "Remarkable," Takeda whispered. The alien's eyes focused on Reeves, and to everyone's shock, it spoke in heavily accented but understandable English. "You heard call, not think. Humans come." "We received your distress signal," Reeves answered cautiously. "Can you tell us who you are and what happened?" "I am Nexel of Naxeri. Last scout." The being struggled to sit up. "My people, dying. Homeworld orbit, destabilizing. Solar flares increasing. Need evacuation." Over the next hours, as Nexel recovered in the medical bay, the full story emerged. The Naxeri were an advanced civilization from a system 20 light-years distant. Their homeworld was caught in a deteriorating orbit around an increasingly unstable star. They had sent scouts in all directions, searching for any spacefaring civilization that might help evacuate their population of nearly 30,000. "Why use an Earth distress signal?" Takeda asked. "We study many transmissions from space, human signals, strongest, most varied, most hopeful." Nexel's skin rippled to a deep azure. "Hoped humans would understand call for help." When Reeves accessed Nexel's vessel's databanks, she found thousands of intercepted human transmissions, music, conversations, distress calls, and news broadcasts, all carefully cataloged and studied. The Naxeri had been listening to humanity's transmissions for over a century, learning Earth languages and customs while never making direct contact. "Our people believe humans special, Nexel explained. You fight each other, yes, but also sacrifice for each other, even for strangers, even for ideas. No other species we observe does this. The situation was dire. The Naxari homeworld had less than 2 months before catastrophic solar activity would overcome their planetary shields. Their own evacuation vessels had been destroyed in a recent solar storm. Without help, an entire civilization would perish. Reeves faced an impossible choice. The Horizon wasn't equipped for a large-scale evacuation, and calling for reinforcements would take too long. Moreover, the Naxari system lay in contested space. The Arcturus Confederacy claimed the region, and human vessels were forbidden entry under penalty of provoking interstellar incident. If we do this, Strategic Officer Chen warned during the emergency briefing, we risk diplomatic crisis with the Confederacy, possibly war. And if we don't, Reeves countered, we condemn 30,000 sentient beings to death when we have the power to help. The debate raged for hours until Reeves finally silenced it by placing her command cylinder on the table, a simple metal tube containing her commission and oath of service. The first oath we take is to preserve life, she said quietly. Not human life. Life. I won't order anyone to join this mission. It's voluntary only. But I'm going, with or without approval from command. One by one, the officers around the table placed their own cylinders beside hers. No words were needed. They formulated a plan. The Horizon would divert to the nearest outpost to offload non-essential personnel and take on additional supplies. Meanwhile, Nexel would transmit specifications allowing Rodriguez's engineering team to retrofit the ship's cargo bays for Naxari life support. They would enter Arcturus space under communications blackout, evacuate as many Naxari as possible, and attempt to reach neutral space before being intercepted. As preparations accelerated, Reeves found Nexel in the ship's observatory, staring at the stars. My people have legends, Nexel said, skin shimmering with gold flecks, of guardians beyond stars who would come in darkest times. Most thought, just stories. But I believed. Reeves stood beside the alien, both of them silhouetted against the cosmic backdrop. Why risk for us? Nexel asked. Your people don't know Naxari. No. Benefit to you. Reeves considered the question, then removed the metal cylinder from her pocket. An old family heirloom inscribed with faded Latin words. An ancestor of mine was a rescue pilot centuries ago, she explained. They lived by a motto, Haec facimus ut ali vivant. These things we do that others may live. She turned the cylinder, revealing the inscription. It's not about benefit. It's about duty to life itself. Nexel's compound eyes reflected the distant stars. This is why we hoped for humans. You understand sacrifice, like no others. As the Horizon changed course toward Naxari space, Reeves felt the weight of 30,000 lives, and the 200 volunteers aboard her ship, pressing upon her consciousness. They were about to violate international space law, risk diplomatic catastrophe, and place themselves in mortal danger for a species they'd known about for less than a week. The mission was impossible, foolhardy, and completely necessary. Commander, Lieutenant Park called from communications. We've received a transmission from command. They're ordering us to return to Earth immediately. Reeves looked around at her crew, each face set with determination. Send the following reply, she said. UNSC Horizon experiencing communications malfunction. Will attempt to re-establish contact when repairs complete. Reeves, commanding. A ripple of grim smiles passed through the bridge crew. Nexel, Reeves turned to the alien scout who had been granted bridge access. Tell your people we're coming. And tell them to be ready. The Naxari's skin rippled through a kaleidoscope of colors before settling on a brilliant white. They will prepare. And they will. Remember. The Horizon leaped into FTL, vanishing from monitored space, its course set for a dying world and a desperate rescue that would either save a civilization or doom their own careers. perhaps even their lives. But as Reeves stared into the swirling vortex of hyperspace, she felt an unexpected sense of certainty. This was what humanity was meant to do. This was who they were meant to be. The descent. 5 days into their journey, the UNSC Horizon dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Arcturus Confederacy territory. The ship's systems had been modified to minimize detection signatures, running on minimal power with heat sinks deployed to mask their thermal profile. Passive scans only. Commander Reeves ordered. I want us as invisible as possible until we reach the Naxeri system. They proceeded at sublight speed, navigating through the sparse outer reaches of Confederate space. The mood aboard ship was tense but focused. Engineering teams worked around the clock, converting cargo holds into habitable spaces for the Naxeri evacuees under Nexel's guidance. Their atmospheric requirements are similar to ours, Dr. Takeda reported during the daily briefing. Higher humidity, slightly higher oxygen content. The real challenge is radiation shielding. The Naxeri evolved on a world with much stronger magnetic fields than Earth. They are highly sensitive to radiation levels we consider normal. Chief Engineer Rodriguez nodded. We've repurposed the emergency radiation barriers from the reactor section. Coverage won't be perfect, but it should be sufficient for the journey to neutral space. As they penetrated deeper into forbidden territory, they detected occasional Arcturus patrol vessels, each requiring careful course adjustments to avoid detection. The Confederacy was known for its aggressive expansion policies and suspicion of human incursion into what they considered their domain. Sir, Strategic Officer Chen called from his station on Day 7. Long-range sensors are picking up unusual activity ahead. Multiple high-energy signatures consistent with Arcturus battle group. The main display showed a cluster of warships in a standard patrol formation, directly along their planned route. They're not supposed to have a battle group in this sector, Reeves murmured. Intel indicated only light patrols. The signatures matched their new dreadnought class. Chen continued grimly. Recent conflicts with the Galatian Alliance must have them reinforcing borders. Reeves studied the tactical display, calculating alternatives. The direct route was now blocked, but any deviation would add precious days to their journey. Days the Naxeri might not have. What about this approach? She asked, indicating a narrow corridor between two dense asteroid fields. Chen winced. The Caraxes Belt. That's a navigational nightmare, Commander. Highly unstable gravitational crosscurrents, unpredictable asteroid movements. We'd need to reduce speed to 1/4. And even then, we have a chance. Reeves finished. Unlike the certainty of being intercepted by that battle group. The decision was made. The Horizon altered course toward the infamous Caraxes Belt, a twisted labyrinth of planet-sized rocks and dust clouds that had claimed dozens of ships over the years. Their sensors could barely penetrate the dense particulate matter, forcing them to navigate almost by instinct. 3 days into the belt, disaster struck. A previously undetected gravitational eddy caught the ship, hurling it toward a massive asteroid cluster. The helmsman, Lieutenant Quan, managed to avoid a direct collision, but the ship's port side scraped against a tumbling rock, the size of a small mountain. Warning alarms blared throughout the ship as Rodriguez's voice came over the comm. Hull breach in sections 12 through 17. Emergency bulkheads engaged, but we're losing atmosphere in the engineering subsections. Damage control teams to affected areas, Reeves ordered, already moving toward the exit. Chen, you have the bridge. She raced through corridors already filling with emergency lighting and the hiss of escaping air. When she reached the sealed bulkhead to engineering, she found Rodriguez and a team in emergency suits preparing to enter. Assessment, she demanded. Critical damage to the primary FTL manifold, Rodriguez replied grimly. We've sealed the breach, but the cooling system for the drive core was compromised. Without repairs, we can't go to FTL when we clear the belt. What do you need? Time and materials we don't have. The manifold casing cracked. We'd need a fabrication facility to replace it. Nexel, who had followed Reeves, stepped forward. My vessel has similar technology. Could adapt. Rodriguez looked skeptical. Your scout ship uses completely different engineering principles. The materials might be compatible, but the design will adapt, Nexel insisted. Naxari technology, designed to integrate, to evolve. The alternative was clear. Without FTL capability, they couldn't complete their mission in time. Reeves authorized the attempt, and a team was dispatched to dismantle the critical components from Nexel's vessel. What followed was a 40-hour engineering marathon, as human and Naxari technology were forced into collaboration. Rodriguez and his team worked alongside Nexel, their hands bloodied and burned as they manipulated materials never meant to interact. It's not pretty, Rodriguez finally reported, his face haggard from exhaustion. But it should hold. The Naxari crystalline matrices are actually regenerating some of the damaged power conduits. Never seen anything like it. With the drive repaired, they continued their perilous journey through the belt. By the time they emerged into clear space, the horizon bore the scars of multiple impacts, and the crew was operating on minimal sleep. But ahead lay their destination, the Naxari system, dominated by a swollen red star showing visible instability even at this distance. Radiation levels are already beyond safety parameters, Takeda warned. The star's in the early stages of going nova. As they approached the third planet, the Naxari homeworld, they received transmission from the surface. The planetary shield was failing faster than predicted. They had less than 12 hours before catastrophic failure. How many can we evacuate in that time frame? Reeves asked, using all available shuttles running continuous cycles. Chen calculated quickly. Perhaps 20,000. That leaves 10,000 behind. The bridge fell silent as the impossible math sank in. We need more time, Reeves said finally. Can we reinforce their shields temporarily? Takeda shook her head. Not with our technology. But perhaps with combination, Nexel suggested. Your deflector technology. Our energy distribution system. Rodriguez considered this. It's possible. We could reconfigure our main deflector to project a reinforcing field over their failing shield. But it would require precise calibration from both inside and outside the shield. Meaning? Meaning someone would need to take a shuttle down to the surface with the calibration equipment. In that radiation environment. Rodriguez didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. How long would it buy us? Reeves asked. Maybe another 18 hours. Enough to evacuate everyone. Reeves made her decision instantly. Prepare the equipment. I'll take the shuttle down. Commander, Chen protested. Regulations specifically prohibit. Note your objection. Officer, Reeves cut him off. This is my decision. To her surprise, Nexel blocked her path. No, must be me. My people, my responsibility. You don't know our technology well enough. Rodriguez countered. It needs to be one of us. After heated debate, they reached a compromise. Lieutenant Park, who had the most experience with the deflector systems, would go with Nexel to the surface. Together, they might accomplish what neither could alone. As the shuttle prepared for launch, Reeves found Park in the equipment bay, methodically checking his radiation gear. Despite the insulation, they both knew the exposure would be severe. The mission parameters are clear, Reeves said formally. Establish the link, calibrate the field, and return to the ship as soon as possible. Park nodded, not looking up from his equipment. Understood, Commander. Danny, she said, dropping rank. They had served together for 7 years. You don't have to do this. He finally met her eyes, a small smile forming. With respect, Commander, yes I do. He patted the pocket of his suit where his own service cylinder rested. These things we do, that others may live, she finished softly. The evacuation began immediately. Shuttle after shuttle descended to the designated extraction points, where Naxari had gathered with only essential possessions. Their iridescent skin had dulled to a sickly gray, the effect of increasing radiation despite their shielding. From the surface, Park and Nexel successfully established the field link. The Horizon's deflector strained under the load, diverting power from all non-essential systems, but the planetary shield stabilized. Hour after hour, shuttles returned filled with Naxari refugees who were directed to the adapted cargo holds. The ship grew crowded, life support systems straining under the load, but the evacuation proceeded with remarkable efficiency. In the 16th hour, as they approached the 80% evacuation mark, Park's voice came through on a breaking transmission. "Commander, equipment failing faster than anticipated. Radiation levels critical. We need to boost the signal. Can we increase power from our end?" Reeves asked Rodriguez. The engineer shook his head. "We're at maximum. Any more, and we risk burning out the deflector entirely." "There's one option," Park's voice crackled. "Manual synchronization from inside the main shield generator. Nexel says he can guide me. The radiation levels inside the generator would be..." Rodriguez began. "Fatal," Park finished simply. "I know, but it would guarantee shield integrity until evacuation complete." Reeves felt the weight of command crushing down on her. "Lieutenant Park, I cannot order you to." "Not asking for orders, Commander," came the reply, steady despite the static. "Requesting permission." In that moment, Reeves understood that denying him would dishonor everything they stood for. "Permission granted, Lieutenant. And Danny, thank you." The transmission quality improved almost immediately as Park relocated to the generator core. For the next 6 hours, he maintained a running commentary, his voice growing weaker, but his technical precision unwavering as he manually adjusted the harmonics between the human and Naxari technologies. The final shuttles lifted off just as the planetary shield began to flicker despite their efforts. The last transmission from the surface came not from Park, but from Nexel. "Lieutenant Park has completed mission. His sacrifice, not forgotten. Am staying. To end with him. My choice." A pause. Then, "Tell our people what humans do for strangers. Tell them why we believed." The transmission cut off as the shield collapsed. On the view screen, the surface of the Naxari world erupted in solar fire. With 28,000 Naxari refugees aboard, over 90% of their remaining population, the Horizon turned away from the dying world, accelerating to maximum sublight speed. Arcturus patrol vessels detected on intercept course, Chen reported, his voice hollow. Reeves stared at the tactical display, then at the crowded holds filled with refugees who had lost their world but not their future. "Prepare for FTL jump," she ordered. "Even with the modified drive, we only need to hold together long enough to reach neutral space." As the hybrid FTL drive engaged, sending them hurtling toward safety, Reeves fingered the metal cylinder in her pocket and whispered words that had guided her family for generations. "Haec facimus ut ali vivant." In the darkness of space behind them, a star began to die, taking with it a world and 2 brave souls who had chosen to remain. But something greater had been saved, not just lives, but the very ideal of sacrifice that defined humanity at its best. Part 3. The Echo. 2 months after the Naxari evacuation, Commander Eliza Reeves stood before the United Earth Defense Council, her dress uniform adorned with neither medals nor insignia. The formal inquiry into her actions had lasted for weeks, with testimony from her crew and extensive review of the Horizon's logs. The chamber was silent as Fleet Admiral Constance Wu delivered the council's verdict. "Commander Reeves, this council finds that your actions in the Naxari incident constituted a direct violation of standing orders and international space law." Admiral Wu's face remained impassive. "You knowingly entered restricted space, engaged in unauthorized first contact procedures, and diverted a United Earth vessel from its assigned mission." Reeves stood at attention, her gaze fixed on the wall behind the council members. She had expected this, had prepared for it. However, Wu continued, This council also recognizes that your actions resulted in the preservation of an entire sentient species that would otherwise have been extinguished. A hint of something, perhaps pride, flickered across the Admiral's face. The Arcturus Confederacy has withdrawn its formal complaint following extensive diplomatic negotiations and testimony from the Naxari leadership. Murmurs filled the chamber as Wu stood. It is the decision of this council that while your actions cannot be officially condoned, neither can they be condemned. You are hereby restored to active duty with full rank and privileges. Furthermore, the council extends its deepest condolences for the loss of Lieutenant Daniel Park and Scout Nexel of the Naxari, whose sacrifices have been recorded with full honors in the service archives. The proceeding concluded with little ceremony, but as Reeves exited the chamber, she found a group waiting for her. Her senior officers from the Horizon, now reassigned to various posts throughout the fleet. They couldn't court-martial us, Rodriguez grinned. Not with 28,000 witnesses singing our praises across every diplomatic channel. What happens to the Naxari now? Reeves asked. Dr. Takeda smiled. The council has granted them settlement rights on Novus Aeterna. It's a terraform in progress, but its strong magnetic field makes it ideal for their physiology. They've already begun establishing communities. The group made their way to a small courtyard where a memorial service was being prepared. A simple stone obelisk had been erected, inscribed with the names of those lost during the mission, headed by Lieutenant Daniel Park and Scout Nexel. As Reeves approached, she noticed a Naxari delegation waiting beside the memorial. Their leader stepped forward, skin shimmering with formal patterns of deep blue and gold. I am Elder Vexera, the Naxari introduced herself. Once head of astronomical sciences, now selected to speak for our surviving people. Reeves bowed slightly. It's an honor, Elder. We have created something, Vexera continued, gesturing to a small device held by one of her companions. For remembrance. For legacy. The device was activated, projecting a three-dimensional image above the memorial, a perfect replica of Lieutenant Park and Nexel standing side by side at the Naxari shield generator, their forms composed of countless tiny points of light that seemed to shift and flow like living stars. We call it the echo, Vexera explained. In our tradition, an echo is not merely a reflection of sound, but the resonance of a soul continuing to influence the universe after physical form ends. The holographic figures moved in a continuous loop, working together, adjusting equipment, occasionally turning to speak to one another with expressions of determined camaraderie. This is reconstructed from facility monitoring systems, Reeves asked, her voice thick. Yes, their final hours preserved. Vexera's skin rippled with somber violet hues. The echo will be installed permanently here and a duplicate at our new settlement, so neither your people nor ours forget what was given. The memorial service that followed brought together humans and Naxari in shared remembrance. As tradition dictated, stories were told of those being honored. Park's unwavering dedication to duty, his dry humor during long shifts, his passion for ancient earth poetry. Nexel's curiosity about human customs, his detailed descriptions of Naxari art forms, his belief in the legends that had ultimately led him to humanity. When it came time for Reeves to speak, she removed the metal cylinder from her pocket, the family heirloom that had guided her decision that day. My ancestor was a rescue pilot in the 21st century, she began. He and his team lived by a motto inscribed on this cylinder. These things we do that others may live. When I was a child, they seemed like just words. A noble sentiment, nothing more. She turned the cylinder in her hands, the polished surface catching the light. Lieutenant Park understood these weren't just words. They were a promise, one that crosses species boundaries, that transcends self-interest, that defines what it means to be not just human, but a conscious being capable of sacrifice. She looked at the assembled Naxari, their skin displaying patterns of respectful attention. What we did wasn't extraordinary by human standards. Throughout our history, Ordinary people have given everything for strangers, for principles, for possibilities. It's woven into who we are. After the ceremony, as the attendees dispersed, Reeves found herself alone with Elder Vexera before the glowing echo. "My people debate philosophies now," the Naxeri elder said. "Some say we should become more like humans, willing to sacrifice. Others say our duty is to honor human sacrifice by preserving ourselves, by thriving." "What do you believe?" Reeves asked. "I believe both are true." Vexera's skin shifted to a contemplative emerald hue. "We must learn courage from humans, yes, but perhaps humans can learn something from us as well." "What might that be?" "That sacrifice is most honored not by dwelling in grief, but by creating beauty from what was saved." The elder gestured to the echo, where the light forms of Park and Nexel continued their eternal work. "We will not waste what your people purchased for us. Every generation of Naxeri will know this story, will see this echo, will understand the price of their existence." 3 years later, Commander, now Captain, Reeves received new orders. The UNSC Horizon Aya, a newly commissioned exploration vessel, was ready for its maiden voyage. Its mission: to escort a joint human-Naxeri scientific expedition beyond the known frontier. As Reeves boarded her new command, she was surprised to find the bridge already occupied. A young Naxeri stood at the science station, skin rippling with excited patterns of teal and silver. "Captain," the Naxeri greeted her with a formal bow. "I am Nexelan, named for my parents' friend who found humanity. I am honored to serve as xenobiology liaison for this mission." "The honor is mine," Reeves replied, noting the small holographic projector on the Naxeri's workstation, a miniature echo showing Park and the original Nexel. Later, as the Horizon Aya prepared for departure, Reeves took her place in the captain's chair. On the bulkhead behind her, a simple plaque had been installed bearing words in both English and Naxeri script. "The ECHO Cointenues in those who live." Below it hung her ancestor's cylinder, now part of the ship's official design, a reminder of the legacy that had spread from humanity to the stars and back again. "Course laid in, Captain," the helmsman reported. "Take us out," Reeves ordered. "Let's see what's waiting for us out there." As the ship accelerated toward the unknown, she thought about the nature of echoes, how a single action could ripple outward, touching lives across time and space in ways impossible to predict. Park and Nexel were gone, but their echo continued, in the Naxeri who lived because of them, in the partnership between species, in every decision made with courage rather than calculation. Some sacrifices were never truly endings. They were beginnings that resonated forever, like starlight continuing its journey long after its source had gone dark. That, perhaps, was humanity's greatest gift to the universe, not just the willingness to sacrifice, but the understanding that such sacrifices created echoes that transformed the future in ways no single life could accomplish alone.